I'm with the San Francisco Taxi Workers Alliance. I'm also the San Francisco Labor Council delegate. Supervisor Asha.
Safai. How you guys doing? All right, are you guys angry? Yeah. Are you ready to fight? Yeah, so are we. Because the idea that we would be putting the nail in the coffin of the taxi industry and dividing the taxi industry is the absolute wrong way to go. The absolute wrong way to go. The airport represents over 40%, as you know, of the taxi industry's business. So the proposal is, we got ourselves into trouble, we got one side on this side, we got another side on this side, so let's bang these guys over the head and disallow them from coming to the airport. That is a bad proposal. That is a bad proposal, okay? It's already hard enough for working people to live in San Francisco. It's already hard enough to survive in this city. And we're talking about taking money out of people's pocket. We're talking about taking food off of their table. That is a bad proposal. So I want you to know that myself, Supervisor Fewer, Supervisor Haney, Supervisor Peskin, all of us are going to come together. We're going to put forward a resolution on Tuesday, and we're going to say, we need a 90-day reprieve. We need to get back to the table. We need to have a better proposal. We're not going to allow this proposal to go forward. We are not going to allow this proposal to go forward. So we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with the taxi industry, and we're going to be with you every step of the way to get a resolution that's fair and balanced. Okay? Everyone might not like it in the end, but we're not going to divide the taxi industry and pit people against one another. I can guarantee you that.
Okay, thank you very much to the members of the Board of Supervisors who have come out today. We really appreciate the resolution that is being talked about. It is sorely needed, and we really appreciate their support. Now, I would like to introduce some members of the San Francisco Taxi Coalition who have organized the event today. And we are going to start with Chris Swice, who is the CEO of Yellow Cab of San Francisco.
Hi, taxi industry. How y'all doing? We're here today because for years the SF MTA has drawn constant scrutiny about their policy decisions and about their rules. And they're doing that to the taxi industry again. Instead of listening to us, their constituents, the people they should be regulating and serving, they're doing things that are going to hurt us. Rather than making us become more competitive with TNCs, they're hampering us, they're tying our hands behind our back, and they're making things worse for us. The reason that we're here today is that they decided to sell medallions at $250,000 a piece. They decided not to regulate Uber and Lyft properly when they first started. And now they're having us make up for their mistakes. Today we're going to appeal to Mayor Breed. We're going to deliver a letter to her office asking her to freeze these regulations until our concerns can be heard and to convene a working group that will make sure that our voice is heard in all MTA decisions. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for your support.
Okay, I want to say a few things real quick myself. Taxi drivers are becoming homeless as well at this point, but now, yes. But now I want to talk a little bit about taxis and what's going on here. The issue that we're talking about today goes beyond taxi drivers. We have the support of labor, and I have a copy of the Labor Council resolution that was passed in October, basically opposing everything that they're planning on implementing on February 1st. What's going on is about the privatization of public transportation. Uber and Lyft are simply privatized taxi cabs. Taxi cabs are public transportation because they are a service that is not competing with Muni. They are a complement to it. And a study that came out the other day is now showing that Muni ridership has dropped by 12.7% since Uber came out. This is significant because we need to have locally regulated, environmentally sustainable public transportation. Flooding the street with 50,000 Ubers is not good for the environment. We have 12 years to do something to stop catastrophic climate change. We need to take dramatic action now, and we need an environmentally sustainable, efficient system, and that's what taxis and buses together do. So The rules that they are talking about putting into effect February 1st will actually exacerbate the situation. If drivers are restricted in how they can pick up and drop off at SFO, we are going to be having lots of drivers heading empty back into the city because they couldn't pick up, and we have other drivers who are going to be prioritized at the airport now heading out there empty as well. This is not an efficient system. This is a public health issue as well. The pollution that is being put on the streets is it's affecting air quality. The extra congestion on the streets, it affects pedestrians and bicyclists. You know, try riding in a bike lane down Valencia with the bike lanes crowded with Ubers just sitting there everywhere. You know, so we're in solidarity with the bicyclists as well. Disabled and youth access to taxi cabs is dropping. It is very hard to get people to want to drive a wheelchair-accessible ramp taxi these days because they're subsidized by the city, and basically the drivers can't make enough driving a ramp cab. We need good access to transportation for the disabled, and taxi drivers have the same federal fingerprint background checks that school teachers have as well. It is illegal for youth to catch an Uber, where if they need to catch a taxi cab, we know they can do it and be safe. The gridlock in the streets is slowing down the buses. This is not helping people stay on transit. So what we really need to do is stop what's going on and support the taxi industry. There is $180 million that the city has recently found that they're trying to figure out what to do with. Some of that money could be used to refund the purchase price to drivers who are going bankrupt right now. And another thing that we need is we need equality for all people providing the same service. Uber and Lyft and taxi drivers, they are all providing taxi service. No matter what Uber and Lyft call themselves, they are taxi cabs. We need, at the very least, we need a level playing field for all people providing this service. The city has not done this. They can do this. This is a choice. The city can do whatever they want at San Francisco International Airport. We would like equal federal fingerprint background checks. We would like equal vehicle safety inspections. We would like equal proof of insurance, and we would like equal drug tests for anybody picking up at San Francisco International Airport. And that's all I have to say today. And so I would like to bring up the next speaker now. How about Carl?
Thank you, Peter, and thanks for everyone coming out today. Just say that the airport ban is obviously bad for the public. It'll be more traffic congestion, pollution, and very damaging to the drivers who rent a cab every day. Hits into their income. Thanks, Peter. Some taxi companies might fold. And for the older medallion holders, the ones who bought their permits called pre-case back in before 1978, this proposal would drive them out of business. They're too old to drive generally, and no one is likely to rent a taxi that cannot go to the airport. So MTA's idea ostensibly was that the people who are underwater with their loans who bought medallions, this would solve their problem, but if they were given the airport exclusively. But someone compared it to putting a Band-Aid on the finger of someone who had a heart attack. I think the credit union's lawsuit against the MTA is very compelling, that the MTA acted in bad faith and with deceit and basically fleeced the credit union out of about $50 million to date, I believe. And so there's going to be a need for money to pay that off and to make the medallion holders whole who bought their permits, who have been treated unfairly and basically tricked into buying a permit when the city was not supporting the legitimate cab industry. So one of the solutions, obviously, is to try to cut the number of Ubers and Lyfts down by a large portion so that we'll have better income, but possibly a bond measure coupled with a tax on every Uber and Lyft ride, something like that. So we're going to ask the mayor to postpone this, and thanks again to all the supervisors and everyone else who's here.
Next up, I would like to introduce Gordon Wong. Gordon Wong is a pre-K medallion holder. He's one of the people who have been in the taxi industry for 40 years. Most pre-K medallion holders are in their 70s or 80s now and are basically losing their pension with the rules that go into effect February 1st.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All I want to say is that this ban is hurting just the Chinese community too, and it's going into our homes. And all I want to say is that we all are losing. we are all losing our income, and this is the only way we can do is come here and plead with you. Please, don't do this bad. Thank you.
I now want to introduce Evelyn Engels. Evelyn Engels is a 5-year San Francisco taxi driver and a member of the San Francisco Taxi Workers Alliance.
Thank you. Well, I'm here to speak on behalf of the drivers who don't own a medallion. The MTA's plan has created a rift between medallion holders and medallion holders. They're branding our cabs with letters to distinguish one from the other. But the medallion holders alone are not the only ones affected. All the taxi drivers that don't own a medallion will be affected by this change too. I'm also speaking as a San Franciscan. I've lived here 40 years, and I've seen the city change from a city where people of all income levels could live to a city that's only for the wealthy. And the decimation of the taxi jobs in this city is part of the growing income inequality that we see everywhere. I believe very much that San Francisco is a city worth fighting for, and saving taxi jobs should be a part of that fight for everyone. So, we taxi drivers are having a very hard time earning a living, and you wouldn't believe some of the things we put up with. I think just the other day I was here in this neighborhood trying to pick up a ride at Bill Graham Auditorium, and the security guards came over and they shined a flashlight in my eyes and they chased me away. And this is common. This is the kind of capricious enforcement that we face all the time. And what makes it worse is that we at the San Francisco Taxi Workers Alliance have gone to the MTA over and over and asked for taxi stands, and we've gotten nothing from them. And this makes us ask, we wonder, just whose side is the MTA really on? I think that none of us can afford to be losing rides. We are driven away from the venues, and now a lot of us will be driven away from the airport as well. And even if we only pick up there a few times a week, it's part of our income. But for many of us, it's the difference between paying rent or paying their mortgage. And many of the older drivers, especially, need to go to the airport to take a break from a 10-hour shift. Driving a car for 10 hours is like driving to LA and back. And you can't do that continuously as you get older. I would like to point out also that we believe that the MTA was never really on our side back in 2012 when these cars with fuzzy pink mustaches first showed up and said they were just your friend with a car, when we all knew they were really gypsy cabs. And the MTA kind of stood back. They got their directions from City Hall. They didn't do anything to restrict or limit the Ubers and the TNCs and the Lyfts, but they did keep selling medallions for $250,000. And these people who have purchased them are burdened with a really heavy financial debt. So I call on the MTA and I call on Mayor Breed to listen to us and to realize that San Francisco is a city that can do much better than this, that we can find a solution that doesn't divide us and that helps those who have purchased medallions and allows all of us to pick up at the airport and doesn't take opportunities to earn a living away from us and doesn't add more to the income disparity that is growing in San Francisco. So don't let the MTA drive us away from this industry, and don't turn the city over to Uber and Lyft. Thank you.
People like to talk a lot about the taxi medallions, and I think a lot of people don't understand them, and it's unfortunate because the taxi industry is so complex that it's really hard to, you can't put it in a soundbite. But for 40 years in San Francisco, taxi medallions were not sold for $250,000. They were earned through sweat equity from drivers who just kept on the streets and kept driving. And now I would like to hear from Barry Korengold, who is a longtime taxi activist and has an earned medallion.
And I earned my medallion. It took me 15 years on a waiting list. I actually been driving a lot longer than that. And what people forget is it's a very dangerous job, particularly the people who earn their medallions. We were driving before there were automatic locks on the doors, before we had cameras. I've known a few cab drivers who've been killed doing this job. I used to go to work and not be sure I was going to come back, seriously. And people forget that, and so somehow now the MTA has decided to, instead of making their highest priority regulating the cabs and providing better service for the public and better working conditions for cab drivers, their top priority now is making money from the cab industry. And now they've made the medallions that they've sold that people can't pay off now, though they're somehow more valuable than the people who earn their medallions. They give us lip service and say, call it earned, but they don't really realize what that means, that we really did earn our medallions. And this new regulation, they want to put out one earned medallion for every 3 purchased medallions. So it's already a 2 or 3 hour wait when you go to the airport. So now they want us to wait 5 or 6 hours, which is impossible. So they're basically banning us from the airport too. So we're already taking a big hit. We're making about 1/5 of what we did about 2 years ago because of Uber and Lyft, which they should have never allowed here. And now they're putting the final nail in the coffin with this proposal.
Thanks, Barry. Liz Bradley is a San Francisco taxi driver with Comfort Cab. Liz, come on up.
Hello, everybody. Hello, all taxi people industry. Okay, New York put a stop to Uber getting more licenses. Why can't we? Hello? Why can't we do what New York does? They got tired of it. Gridlock, 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 right? Okay. 21 years ago, I paid $300 to get on a list to get my medallion for free, assigned to me. Muni, or the county of San Francisco, never gave me back my $300. Did anybody get their $300 back when all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, Newsom turns us over to Muni, and Muni goes, oh wow, we can sell those medallions that those drivers worked 25 years slave to get, with the promise that we'd be able to take it easy at age 70. Muni came in, sold them all for millions of dollars to drivers in low income. And then Uber came in and took over the business. And now they want to block us from the airport. Have you lost your mind? What's going to happen to cab companies when they can't lease the other cabs that are not Ps? You know, there's 1,500 cabs, only 450 get into the airport on those free rides through the airport. And the only reason they're doing it is because they screwed up and sold medallions when Uber came in and took over the business. And now the San Francisco Credit Union told them, oh, let your P medallions into the airport for free. I'm not sure that's a fact, but I have a feeling that's what happened. Because why would the P medallions get into the airport for free while the rest of us are trying to put food on our table making $50? Thank you.
Here today, and then I would like to invite everybody to come up to the mayor's office with us and deliver a letter, asking her to do the right thing. One more speaker here, and after that, anybody who is interested in coming up with us, please, once Marcelo here is done speaking, start lining up by the steps over here, and then we're gonna head into City Hall. So Marcelo is a long-time earned medallion taxi driver. He's a member of the Medallion Holders Association and has been a tireless activist coming to many MTA and CPUC meetings. So Marcelo.
Thank you, Peter. For those who are not members of the San Francisco taxi industry, I'd like to say that the mess we find ourselves in today is a result of a failed medallion sales program masterminded by Gavin Newsom and carried out by late Mayor Lee. At the same time, he praised Uber and Lyft in his State of the City address and later proclaimed July 13 Lyft Day in San Francisco. So their actions were sleazy, immoral, unethical, and very possibly illegal. So it is about time the MTA, the mayor's office, challenge the CPUC and achieve a level playing field in the transportation for hire market.
My name's Carl McMurdo, and today I was with a group called the San Francisco Taxi Cab Coalition, and we're here to specifically fight against a policy that the Municipal Transportation Agency, which is the city's taxi regulator, wants to implement beginning next week to disallow almost half of the taxis in San Francisco either to go to the airport at all to pick up or put them at a great disadvantage. So we're here to try to get the mayor to intervene and not allow this to go forward. The general problem that drivers face is that going back 90 years to something called the Haas Act in New York State, the taxi regulators realized that if there weren't a balance of supply and demand, that the drivers and other stakeholders could not make a decent living. So what we've had now is, with Uber and Lyft coming into San Francisco, close to 50,000 of them, it's really upset that balance. There's way too much supply, plus they're selling rides below cost. So the main problem the taxi drivers face is not being able to make enough money. There are all too many people who want the inexpensive ride, and these rides are subsidized by, for example, the Saudi Arabia royal family now owns 10% of Uber, awaiting the initial public offering. So we're at a big disadvantage, and people have trouble earning a living now. Yeah, and in fact, one of the there's several different disparate taxi organizations. The one that I've been president of for 15 years is called Medallion Holder Association. It's basically a small business license. So again, the regulators have tried to do a balancing act traditionally, having something called a periodic public convenience and necessity hearing. For example, they might need to put out 50 or 100 cabs the next year, and they're trying to balance the public's need for adequate service against not flooding the streets so that drivers can't make a living. So the Medallion is basically a business permit that authorizes and requires its permit holder, to have a taxi on the streets 24/7. The people in San Francisco who got their permits prior to 1978 are called pre-K. They bought them. Then the group that I'm part of, and most of our members, between 1978 and 2010, you were not allowed to buy a Medallion, but if you could put your name on a list and wait about 15 years and get one for nominal processing fees. And since 2010, the city has resumed selling Medallions, and those are the people who are really the biggest disadvantage. They're underwater, most of them, with their loans.
They started reselling the Medallions after they introduced Uber and Lyft?
It was right around the same time. There was a pilot program in year 2010, but the permanent Medallion sales program went into effect in 2012. And at that time, the mayor's office, the mayor's office had a Lyft day in San Francisco on July 13 of 2013, which was 2 months prior to the Public Utility Commission legally authorizing a new category of transportation they call transportation network companies. That's Uber X and Lyft, where people use their personal car and like a taxi, although the PUC claims it's not really a taxi, but it really is. But anyway, to answer your question, that's exactly what happened. The Municipal Transportation Agency kept selling Medallions to people and assuring everyone that they were going to be very valuable and that the regulators would support the value of the Medallion, but at the same time, the city was bending over backwards to help Uber and Lyft take over the streets. It would be that the city needs to go back to having a process like the public convenience and necessity hearings to figure out how many taxis is the right number, and to take into account that the stakeholders, especially the taxi drivers, have to have enough fares to make a living or there won't be an industry. Well, I do think that, and I think, yeah, it's Uber and Lyft, they're trying to supplant the taxi industry, because if they succeed in driving the taxi industry out of business, they're going to have a monopoly and then raise their prices to taxi fare levels. It's not going to stay subsidized by people, so that the passengers who jump in now mostly are doing it because it's like $1 a mile, $1.20 a mile instead of $2.80 a mile for the passengers. So yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what the investors at Uber want to do, is create a monopoly and have an initial public offering and let other new investors be left holding the bag when the whole scheme blows up like the Ponzi scheme it really is.
So what's going to happen when they introduce self-driving cars?
Well, you know, people are all over the map about that, and some people think it's imminent, and there are other people. I think the guy who's head of Apple, I might have it mixed up, but some of the people say this isn't going to be feasible at all with inner city situations, probably ever, but at least not for 20 or 30 years. Other people think it's right around the corner. I personally don't think a self-driving taxi is going to work in the city streets.